All right, so Megan has confirmed that she has signed divorce papers against Zach and has also been talking about situations where allegedly Zach and her ex-best friend took her child and got family Christmas photos without her. So we're going to be chatting about this today, guys. And anytime I talk about this, people are always like, Pommy, why are you talking about that? You can't talk about that. And the reason I talk about it is very simple. If Megan Plays, the alleged victim in this situation, is posting about stuff publicly, it's because she wants people to know about it. If she didn't want people talking about it, if she didn't want it to be public knowledge, she would not post it. And the fact that she continues to post about it, which is obviously her right as the person involved in this situation, shows to me that she is okay with people discussing it and people knowing about it. If it was a secret, she would have kept it a secret, right? However, it does of course matter how you talk about it. Don't over dramatize things, don't be disrespectful, and I try my best to be as respectful as possible. But my intention with these videos is to share information with people who may not have access to TikTok, who may not have access to Instagram, or maybe just miss this information and still want to be informed on the current situation. Now with that in mind, anytime I talk about stuff too, people are like, Pommy, why are you saying alleged? Why are you saying that? It's so obvious. There's so much evidence. It's because I follow the law. Anybody who makes commentary content, my biggest suggestion to you, don't make unsubstantiated claims, which is basically don't claim anything as fact unless it's been proven in a court of law. And at the time of recording this video, nothing has been proven in a court of law, at least that's been released publicly. So keep that in mind. Everything I discuss in this video is alleged, and I'm simply just analyzing the videos that Megan Plays has posted on her public TikTok account. So, with that in mind, yesterday evening, Megan posted a video with a caption, "Help me pick out tomorrow's outfit. Thank you, I love you, bye." Where basically she tried on a variety of outfits in this video and told the audience, help me, pick out the outfit. And during that video, she mentions, kind of just in passing, which I was like, oh, but she mentions in passing, hey guys, just so you know, the reason I'm getting dressed up and going out is to celebrate signing divorce papers, which a lot of people have been confused by what does that mean. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm also a little bit confused because there's two ways you can think about this. One being initiating a divorce, which I know a little bit about this because of like family stuff. But initiating a divorce, which typically is like one form of signing where you sign to acknowledge, hey, yeah, we're getting divorced, let's start. And basically the process of getting divorced is you have to divide up assets like the family home, finances, assets such as YouTube channels, which we'll get into in a second here. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but basically there's that first step to initiating a divorce. There's also finalizing a divorce where you sign papers to finalize the divorce and now you're fully divorced. I'm not exactly sure what stage they are in this. I would assume it's probably not the later one, but I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Just because there's so much involved in the situation. But again, this could have been going on for a while before we even found out about it. So that could be why maybe some of the stuff is more ahead than we would assume it would be. But I've seen a lot of people speculating, especially in this particular comment section, saying, oh, so Zach owns half your YouTube channel, which I understand why people may have that misconception. But basically, when you get married to somebody, unless you sign certain legal documents, if you are to get divorced, your assets, so everything you each own, is divided in half. So the house technically is divided in half. And typically when you get divorced, the way that it will work is that you will sell the house and then you each keep 50% of the sale price after you pay off the mortgage and stuff like that. But of course, that would vary by group to group, and that was more so a practice sort of situation back in the day where it was more typical for a woman to stay home and a man to go work, and so the women typically wouldn't have anything to their name because they've been a stay-at-home mom, so that's why stuff was divvied up 50-50 so that they could still kind of survive. However, that's not so much the case anymore with how our society has changed and how we've kind of developed and stuff like that, which I'm not going to get into all that, but regardless, there is a specific legal document called a prenuptial agreement, which again, I'm not a lawyer, but it's basically an agreement saying, hey, you own your stuff, I own my stuff. If we get divorced, we each just keep our stuff, which typically, especially when you have large YouTube channels with Megan, being an internet celebrity, I would err on the side that she most likely signed a prenup saying, hey, this is my stuff, that's your stuff. So that way, even in the case that they got divorced, she would still keep her YouTube channel. Because if you don't sign a prenup, typically the way that it works, and of course your lawyers can negotiate otherwise, but it would be that your partner would keep half of your assets, including half of your YouTube channel, which again, every divorce is different. You don't always split things 50-50. Sometimes there's different situations, especially when a partner maybe earns significantly more than another partner. It's always up to the courts. And at the end of the day, stuff like child custody and stuff like that, when you get divorced, it's typically 50-50. So the mom has 50% custody, the dad has 50% custody, and then, they can negotiate other custody terms if they so wish, whatever. Everything is always able to be negotiated in the court of law with your lawyers, because each party will have a lawyer to represent them. But at the time of recording this video, we don't know too much about that. So with that in mind, basically she just posted this video saying that, yeah, help me pick out an outfit, I'm getting divorced. And a lot of people are saying, oh, Zach owns half your YouTube channel. I don't think that's the case. So to clear that up, based on what I understand and what I can assumption, again, clarifying, not as fact, assumption, I believe Megan owns 100% of her channel. So please don't be worried about that. Now, with that in mind, this person says, I don't want to sound weird or rude, but where's the baby at? And Megan replied with Zach, again, confirming they have 50-50 custody. And some people were saying, like, oh, you gave Zach your child? How could you do that? Because that's how the law works, babe. Just because someone allegedly did something unfaithful does not mean they don't have a right to be with their biological child. Obviously, they do. And that's just how the justice system works. Even if somebody feels like they've been screwed over, the other parent still legally has a right to see their child. That's just how it is. Unless there's other things involved at play, typically both parents have rights to see each other's kid. They can see their kid. Now, aside from that, there was also this video that went out yesterday, or today actually, sorry, a couple hours ago, where it reads, I spent 3 hours on this and I know it's going to fall apart 3 minutes, but I'm okay with that. It's kind of symbolic in a way, which I think a lot of people have been referring how it falls apart. It's symbolic, kind of how she was referring to her marriage allegedly falling apart, which I thought was an insightful thing for people to recognize. But regardless, she basically took a tiara that said like just married or like bride to be or something like that, and she took off the letters and replaced it with divorce. She basically spray painted wooden letters with glitter and gray and then sealed them and then glued it on. And a lot of people were like, oh, awesome. And that's what made people think that maybe this was like them signing the finalized divorce papers. But again, I feel like with how much stuff is involved, like if you guys have seen her TikTok, you've seen that she has an absolutely beautiful home. I can only imagine how much that home is worth. I'm not sure if everything's finalized, like if then the house is hers or whatever. And I don't want to get too much into that because I just don't know. So that's why I would say I'm not sure if it's finalized or if it's just the early stages. But regardless, she's just saying she's divorced, so we'll go with that. She's divorced. Now, this person writes, wait, who is the stepmom, if you don't mind me asking? Because she mentioned at some point that the baby's with the stepmom or something like that, which in my previous videos I'd mentioned. I think that Megan's ex-best friend would most likely be the stepmother because that's how it would work, right? If the dad, the biological dad, is dating somebody, that person that he's dating would then become the stepmother, unless, obviously some people like to err on the side of not introducing their children to dating partners because they want their children to have a stable life, which I understand. But in this case, someone responded, Leah, and it's her and Zach get married. If her and Zach get married, which calling somebody a stepmom isn't restricted to being married to somebody. You can call somebody a stepmom even if they're just dating. It really just depends on what people decide on and what they want. It's kind of just like a subjective term. It's not really necessarily a legal term because the whole point of like getting like secondary custody, I want to get into this, but she'd have to get custody of the child or some form of custody to actually be considered like legally like a guardian. But regardless, Megan responded and said, they took family Christmas photos together with my baby. Shocking. Which, this is the thing too, is like, obviously it's her child, but I'm curious, like, how is she finding out about this? Which, not to say it should be a secret, obviously she should know what's going on with her kid because it's her kid, right? It's also Zach's kid, but I'm curious, like, were these photos sent out? How'd you get access to them? Did he maybe post them publicly? I didn't see anything, but maybe he did, I don't know. But regardless, that must be incredibly difficult to deal with because, it's one thing to be in a relationship with somebody that you think is your soulmate and to have a child and have all these pets together and have a house and, your life just seems perfect. And then for it to all fall apart to no fault of your own, right? Because of somebody else's alleged choices, right? And then to see them just moving on, like nothing happened, that it didn't matter. And I think that's what she's kind of feeling now, what she's kind of shared her sentiment being on her TikTok and Instagram stories throughout the past couple of weeks, is that it's the holiday season. She's obviously, wanting to get involved with holidays with her child. And she said she wouldn't be celebrating Christmas this year in one of the comment sections, but that her child would still be getting a, visit from Santa, which I think is really important because as a parent, regardless of if you're struggling, keeping things as normal and as stable for your child as possible is definitely like the most important thing when it comes to childhood trauma and like children obviously having healthy coping mechanisms and healthy understandings of what is a relationship, what is connection, like how do you treat people, stuff like that, which all starts very, very young. I think it's incredibly responsible of her to still obviously have Christmas for her child because that's something that could help promote a stable sort of environment for her child. And the whole thing with now them being divorced and joint custody and the child obviously moving between house to house. But regardless, I think the situation is honestly incredibly difficult for everybody involved. And at the end of the day, I said this in my last video and I will say it again, regardless of what somebody has allegedly done, the death threats that this other creator, and I'm trying not to name them by name because I don't need people like commenting more about them because anytime I name them, I find people just go ballistic in the comments. But regardless of what someone has allegedly, emphasis on allegedly done, that does not give you a right to mistreat them like that. It does not give you a right to talk about them like that. It doesn't give you a right to say that they should not exist. Like, that stuff is incredibly harmful. And yes, you cannot agree with somebody's alleged actions. You cannot agree with somebody's choices. That is okay. But what's not okay is wishing death upon somebody, which I think is incredibly messed up. So guys, please be, you know, understanding with your words. If you don't have anything nice to comment on their videos, that's okay. Don't comment. You know, I think it's that simple. Like, the whole comments, ignore all the love, and then people celebrating that on Twitter, I think it's just messed up. Okay, I think that's weird. But regardless, I'm not necessarily here to police people on the internet, but more so to try and like tell you, hey, there's a human behind the screen, regardless of what has happened. And it's mean to say that. Let's not be bullies. But regardless, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Please go show Megan some love. I will, of course, link her TikTok down below like I typically do. If you guys want to go ahead and check out these videos for yourself and leave her a kind comment, I definitely did on my accounts. So with that in mind, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!